So, current research suggests right now that 1 in 20 children are being diagnosed with SPD.
Yeah.
So, my child was diagnosed 8 years ago. How about you?
Just around about the same time. Absolutely.
Okay. But didn't you know beforehand, before the diagnosis?
Yeah, I knew at about 2 weeks old maybe I sensed something was wrong because he didn't want to be held.
Okay.
Screamed his little head off.
Screamed. You know what? I knew well before my daughter's diagnosis. Something didn't seem right. But I was told by everybody that I brought it up to that every child was different.
Right.
Right?
Or
that I was overreacting.
Yeah. Oh, you're a first-time mom.
Okay, so you had a boy, I have a girl.
Yeah. So I was being told that all boys act like that. He'll grow out of it.
And although, as we've said earlier, SPD can present in many different ways. You know, when we talk about our children, they are two specific cases. Okay? Every child is different, true.
Right. Yes.
Every case of SPD is going to present differently. So
Right.
when we talk about our children, you may see some real similarities with your own children, but they're not going to be exactly the same. So when I was talking about my child from the outside looked completely normal.
Right.
Nothing physically presented to a pediatrician as a red flag. And so when I was saying something isn't right with this child, he was looking at me and saying, every child is different, Carrie. There's nothing wrong with this baby.
Right. Well, and then what happens is as many times, and it's happened with me and with you, is our parenting comes under fire.
Absolutely.
Because that is an easy answer to why a child would not be coming to dinner, for instance, when you called a child for dinner.
It became an issue.
You know,
well, if there's nothing wrong with her, then it had to be me.
Right.
Because if she wouldn't put her shoes on to go outside, or wouldn't put a coat on when it was 25 degrees outside, or in order to get her coat on to go outside when it was 25 degrees on, it took me 35 minutes or a 35-minute screaming meltdown or tantrum, then it obviously had to be my parenting.
Right. And
if there was nothing wrong with her, it had to be us.
And back then there was no books, there was no internet about sensory processing disorder, so there was nothing to look for. So when a pediatrician or someone who's, your mother-in-law, your grandmother, your neighbor who has raised 4 children says, well, maybe you need to be stricter, or maybe you need to be firmer, or a good spanking might help, or whatever, you're like you're sort of lost. I mean, what about you when you found out? You heard the word sensory processing disorder. Well, in the olden days, sensory integration or sensory integration dysfunction, I mean, how many labels were there for this? And I used to say, I don't really care what you call it. However, I need to know what to do about it.
Well, and that's why this has become so important to you and me to do what we're
doing. Raise awareness for sensory processing disorder so that other parents can, because early intervention is so important.
Well, not only for the children, but for parents to stop feeling so isolated, to stop feeling as if it is their fault or that they're doing something cause.
Well, in a given situation, did you and your husband argue? I mean,
of course we did.
And we started out being parents on the same page. Our children will not talk back to us.
Absolutely.
Our children will come to dinner when we ask them to come for dinner.
Speak respectfully.
Wash their hands.
Absolutely.
All these things. And when my second child did not do the things that his older brother did, we were like, and then my husband would say to me, well, you need to be firmer. And I'd be like, you need to be softer. And there the battle begins.
Getting in the way of your child's.
Let's go back to your instinct, what you were talking about your instinct. Earlier you said, if you feel that there is something wrong or off about your child, what you were trying to say was, please go further and speak with an occupational therapist. Pediatricians may or may not understand this disorder yet.
Right.
But a phone call to an occupational therapist will take a very short amount of time, will not cost you anything, or you can go on the internet and search sensory processing disorder further. There are several amazing books out there now that were not around when we were starting this journey with our children. There are several books. There's other videos you can watch and see, but there is research being done on this right now. There's some studies being done that will help the medical community come on board with this.
Absolutely.
But just like any other disorder, they have to go through their processes, but we are the parents who are trying to say, move forward now. Go forward, ask your questions, and find other parents.
Oh, absolutely.
The support group network that's out there now. There's in-person support group networks that have been started.
We haven't talked about really is that Laurie and I live on different coasts.
She's from Seattle.
Laurie is from New Hampshire. I live on the West Coast, and we have been very good friends for the last 8 years. And
we were brought together because of sensory processing disorder and our children.
And the support group that Laurie founded. And
Carrie started a support group in her hometown, and several other parents started support groups in their hometowns. And we didn't have doctors or pediatricians or occupational therapists helping us. We just the internet is a wonderful thing, and we just all gave support via the internet. And how are we going to do this? And then we just opened a library or opened it one night and said, show up and come learn about sensory processing disorder, and that's how it started. And then we'd get some great materials from different companies and different doctors and occupational therapists about sensory diets and everything to share, and that was very powerful, because when you hear somebody else say the words, my child has sensory processing disorder, and is there someone else on the planet that has the same thing?
Absolutely. You don't need to feel isolated. There are parents all over the United States who are dealing with the same thing that you are. They understand the frustrations. They understand about not being able to go into public or trying to figure out how to go to the grocery store and how to figure out how am I going to...
How are you going to get dressed in the morning?
How are you going to get dressed and be able to go to a restaurant or not go to a restaurant or not have people into your house because it's so much pressure and so much stress on your child.
Birthday parties. Do they go to 2 in one afternoon, or can they even go to one at all?
So we understand what you're going through. We've been there. Our children now are teenagers,
and they're thriving and they're functioning.
It gets better. It gets better. They will learn to deal with it. Your child will learn to
cope. How?
Well, occupational therapy. Oh my goodness, occupational therapy.
We should have pom-poms. We're the OT cheerleaders. Yes, we are.
So actually,
cheerleaders.
Going back to what Laurie said about when you're looking for help and you call an occupational therapist, you ask them if they're trained in sensory integration therapy, and if they understand it, then
Well, in the test that you're looking for your child to have is a sensory integration and praxis test. This test is not a written test. This is a test where an occupational therapist who has been trained in sensory processing disorder will assess your child. They will look at the way your child walks, talks, plays, functions, writes, looks, smells. My child.
So you know what? You found us here. We're going to continue to post and upload videos here for you that hopefully will provide you with some information that will help you on your own journey with your children. We think that giving you some parental views will give you
supplement
your own research.